Hey guys, Simsy Claire here and welcome back. Today I'm showing you a tiny house speed build here in Oasis Springs. I'm starting here with the front of the house. I really wanted to put the patio area off to the side. Sometimes when I build tiny homes, I feel like they look a little awkward, just sitting in the center and then the patio's out back and there's just this tiny square sitting on the lot. So I end up building up the terrain quite a bit, using some debug boulders and everything, and then I put the patio off to the side to kind of give it the feel of this was a half developed lot. It's a new sim, they just moved in maybe after university, and they decided that this lot, it was small, they didn't need that much space right now, they wanted a large outdoor area to entertain, so they just built on a lot that wasn't quite finished. Here you see I'm putting in the move objects cheat. I really like the way that placing those two small windows looks next to the front doors. I think it gives like a little break from just having empty wall space without having to build like a plant, since there wasn't actually a patio for me to put anything on up front. This does mean, however, that bottom window, you can see it looks a little weird. The bottom window you cannot see through because it technically glitches into the top window. I didn't really mind it because when you're like in the build and you're playing with it, you don't really have that wall up all the time. So I thought it was okay. I end up doing it again over here in a second. I wasn't liking how all of the doors stopped, like right before the top of the windows. So I put the window up top above the door that I choose. I believe it's the laundry day door, so that way it matches the height of the windows. Here in a second, I'm picking out some terrain paint to build the patio with. As I said, it's off to the side. It's quite a large square. You will see me fiddle with some of the toddler stuff pack lights in a second. I did a lot of weird like move object cheats and shrinking them down to get them to fit in the way that I wanted them to, because leaving them full size, they were just too big to fit in this square that I had created. I do cut most of it out. I let you guys see this piece right here so you can get the gist of what I was doing, but basically I was shrinking down the side lights and then using the full-size poles in the center of them where they were missing the pole, so that way it still touched the ground. But obviously, because some of them do have two poles on them, I had to do a lot of like moving and zooming in really close or zooming really far away, and the camera was moving all awkwardly, so I did cut it out. Here I'm just adding the rest of the windows. I use these base game windows, which I love. I do use them on a lot of my builds. I will try to mix it up now that I'm putting these on camera, but no promises. Here I'm trying to find like a different texture to put on the outside of the house, but I end up sticking with this plain gray paneling from Cats and Dogs, I believe. Going into the interior, I built a little tiny square for the bathroom, and then I realized that that's not big enough. I'm not a fan of putting everything in the one square and just cheating it to make it work, so I always try and have enough room for everything that I need. Here I'm starting with the kitchen. I don't usually start with the kitchen, usually I start with the front area, but since this house doesn't really have a front area, I decided that the kitchen was where I was going to try and like plan out the colors and everything. And once I picked these pinkish colors for the curtains, I decided I was going to do the mauve Murphy bed that we got with Tiny Living because the colors match almost exactly, and I love that purple. So you'll see me here, I'm doing a feature wall of white, and then I'm going to go in and pull out the Murphy bed from Tiny Living and place it kind of off to the side. So it's not directly in the center of the wall, but it matches up with the wall on the other side so I can place a TV. So we didn't have a bare corner here. I used that poof from Tiny Living. It doesn't act as a chair, it's only a table, which is a little annoying, but I still think it's a really cute object. And then I pull out some pictures again from Tiny Living. This house has a lot of Tiny Living. It is a tiny house to begin with, so a lot of those objects just work better in this build, but it does also use a lot of Cats and Dogs and a lot of base game and I think some seasons as well. Here I'm doing a little plant corner. I love putting plants in my houses. I do go overboard on them a lot, so I do apologize. And then here I end up placing the tray from Tiny Living, because I liked the way that the purple matched with the mauve. After I place this, I move on to the TV. I do use the TV unit from Tiny Living as well, and I also pull out the two larger shelving units of it, and I try and merge them together to make it look like a built-in unit. I really like how it ends up looking. I try to fill in the space underneath so it looks like a larger unit, and like there's shelving down below and like the TV's almost resting on something, but I can't get anything to work. I try one of the dressers, and I also try the coffee table, I think it is, and they're either too big or they don't quite fit in the area, so I end up just leaving it blank. I also tried to put the tiny living like book stack on the top of the shelves, but they don't snap there, and I didn't want to deal with the 9 key because I was pretty sure that those shelves also worked as bookshelves, so I decided it would be okay to leave it. Here I'm using the tiny living high top table, and I'm just putting it in the corner here with a plant. I was going to try and put some clutter items. You can see me shifting through the catalog right now. I decided against it though, and I also don't add any clutter in the kitchen. Usually I add some, not a lot, but some. But since it's a tiny house, I wanted to make sure everything was definitely usable. So here I'm just adding some cabinets before I move into the bathroom. You'll see me change the colors here of the wall. I wasn't quite liking how the border was looking on that yellow wall, so I end up changing it to blue, which I think was a good decision. I like how it plays against the white accent wall and then the white in the windows, and I think it looks really good with that pinky mauve color that we have going on. I add a towel here just so the Sims had somewhere to dry their hands and a soap dispenser. And then I move on into the bathroom. I use the tile wall from Parenthood and then the Spa Day tile flooring. I use the Spa Day tile flooring a lot. I really like the color swatches it comes in, and I also like how it's like subtle differences in the grains of the tile, but it's still noticeable when you do change which swatch you're using. I use the tiny living sink and the tiny living toilet, and then I get a mirror, a couple towels, and the seasoned shower. Here you see me messing with the 9 key to get the toothbrushes to sit on the corner of the sink. It does work. You'll see when I like turn the camera, it ends up looking a little wonky, almost like they're hanging off of it. But I totally forgot about it and wasn't paying attention as I was filming this, so I don't go back and fix it. And then I was just deleting this random toothbrush holder that showed up over there. Here we are moving to the outside of the build. You see I dragged the mailbox over from that outer corner just so it lines up with the house, and then I create a nice walkway up to the front door. I add some plants here in front of the mailbox. I usually like to add something around the mailbox just so it's not sitting in the middle of empty space. Sometimes it's the garbage cans, but more often than not it is a little garden area. I add some terrain paint here to make it look like she treks there a lot and there's a little bit of a shadow. And then in a second here, you'll see me messing with this low-lying fence. I mess with it quite a lot. I really like the idea of having these planter boxes here to make the house look a bit more manicured and less barren, but they add to the tile count because I'm using fences, and instead of it being a micro home, when I close off the fences, it now says it's a tiny home. I don't really mind it because I wasn't building this to be a micro home. I just wanted it to be a smaller home. If it bothers you or you really want it to be a micro home, you can go ahead and just delete that outer rim of the fence, and then it will no longer count against you. I just thought it looked better being a completely closed off section. And I just pull out some of the base game cactuses that we got. And then here I start using the boulders for the landscaping. I didn't know yet that we had boulders inside of the debug menu, so I just use the ones that we got with the game, and I size them up, and then I merge some plants into them that look like the ones from the surrounding area. It looks a little weird considering the ones in the back are the same color as the exterior ones, but these are not. But I figured going with the storyline, if the sim had found a half-developed lot, then the front of it probably wouldn't have had any stones left on it to begin with. So I thought maybe she had gone through and added them herself to make it feel more like it was a part of the exterior. And then here you see again, I'm trying to extend this planter box so it can border the front of the patio, but it just keeps adding to the tile count, so I end up leaving it. And then I move on to where the garbage cans are going to be. I know your sim only needs one, but I always put two, so that way it can kind of have a recycling bin as well. Particularly now with Eco Lifestyle coming out. I don't know if we're getting recycling bins, but I know we can sort through the trash. So I figured putting two out kind of just makes it more realistic. And here's where I add that third planter box I was telling you about. And then I realized, looking in through the window, you could see straight into the shower. So I do go through and add some curtains to these windows as well. I just quickly add the island living ones in white to play off of the windows and that feature wall. And then here I'm adding the outdoor entertainment area. We have a bit more space out here than we do inside the house. And so I add the grill section and a table, and then I give them the water balloon bucket. I think that's a great animation. I usually only use it with children, but I thought since we're in Oasis Springs and it's really hot here, they probably use it to cool down at their parties. And then I give the sim a little garden area over here. I stack up some of the pots because I thought maybe she had just started gardening, so she just got all of her equipment and she hadn't quite unpacked everything, and she was, just getting rolling in her new house, so she wanted to start, but she hadn't quite gotten there yet. So I also add the clutter inside of the other planters, the ones that are stacked, just to kind of give it, again, that feel of she started, but she hasn't quite made it there yet. And then I just add a couple more clutter items around, utensils, plates, paper napkins, and everything. And then I do end up changing out that condiment caddy for the drink tray that we got with the lemonade pitcher. And here I'm just placing that seasons basket. I really like that item. I wish it had a purpose, like besides decoration, but it is a really cute item. And then here we're moving on to the outside boulders. I wanted to talk about something real quick. So I'm really sorry about this, and I wish it hadn't have happened so soon into my channel. But as we all know, The Sims is finicky, and when I went to go play test the build, everything worked, but the Murphy bed did end up killing my sim before I took the screenshots. So when the sim dies and there's no one else in the household, it moves out all of the furniture because it's as if your sim had to move out of the lot. So I had to go back through and refurnish everything before I took the screenshots. So not everything is exactly the same as how I built it in this video. I tried to remember as most as I could, but some of the plants are different in that corner, and I think I forgot the painting that hangs above them. So I do apologize if you catch a couple of differences. I really hope that doesn't happen again, but this is The Sims, so it probably will. Getting back into the video, you see I'm just adding a couple of these plants here. I do end up moving those next to the grill later on because I end up putting a pool over there, so it doesn't have the same amount of space. And then this is when I found the debug boulders. So I had originally just been saving space so I could size up some of the other ones, and then when I found these, I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. So I went through and started adding them, and I do pull out a couple of the other ones as well and just size them down. And then I just keep doing this, sizing down the boulders and merging the plants into them. Some of the plants, when you look close up, they do glitch a little through the boulders, but I thought it was okay because when you are out in the desert, not that I've ever been to a desert, but from TV shows, when you are out in the desert, the plants grow like around the rocks, and if they're really persistent, they grow up through like the stony gravel and everything, so I figured it would be okay. It's kind of more realistic that way if the plants are inside of the rocks rather than just sitting next to them. And then here with this last rock formation, again I do the same thing where I just merge the rocks together, but I do add some of the regular garden cactuses into this one. I thought maybe when she moved in here, since this one was so close to her house, she had some extra plants from where she had started gardening her little flower boxes, so she added them out there to make it a bit more cohesive. And then over here, this is where I decide that I want to change out the wading pool for an actual pool. I make it an above ground pool because I figured since she didn't have a lot of money, hence the tiny house, maybe she had bought like almost an inflatable pool or one of those like freestanding ones so that it wasn't as expensive as having to build in the ground. It is a rather small pool, but it's still bigger than the wading pool. I try to add this diving board, but it doesn't really work. It kind of blocks the table, so I end up leaving it and just use this floaty. Besides that, that is pretty much the end of this video. I hope you all enjoy and stick around for the next one. Have a great day, everyone. Bye!